Now, from this point onwards, I'm probably going to talk a lot more about Olympic sports. That's not to say, because Olympic summer sports, just to give you the progress over the various cycles. But of course, there's a similar story of progress in Paralympic sport, and it's not just about summers. In our world, it's summers and winters. So all the principles apply to every athlete that we support, whether they be Olympic or Paralympic, summer or winter. So UK sport was created after that debacle in 96. UK sport was created, so I definitely wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing if it hadn't been for 96. We started then to be able to support in world-class programmes and athletes in parallel, and we started to learn to look at what the Australians were doing and looking at their institute network that they were developing, and we started to look at how science and medicine could be improved in terms of support for sports and aligned with the work of the governing bodies. And as a result, there was a jump from 96 to Sydney. So we were 36th. We came 10th in the medal table in Sydney with 28 medals and 9 gold. And so we continued to invest in athletes and sports, and there was an incremental change to Athens, not a big shift. So we were 10th again with 30 medals, so more medals. But I think 1 fewer gold medal. But it was considered to be improvement because we were winning more medals. But something then very special happened. As we moved towards Athens, we knew that we needed more resources to support more sports and more athletes for Beijing in 2008. And questions were being asked at the time about how many athletes should be funded, how many sports, at what cost to the public purse. So UK sport, you keep asking for more money, but where's the evidence that you need that money? And I was, at that time, I was acting CEO for a time. It took me a long while to get the job as a CEO. I was acting then. I obviously didn't do a very good acting job. And we contracted a very talented guy called Peter Keane, who'd moved out of British cycling, having led the development of its world-class programme through Sydney. We gave him free rein to answer the question, solve the problem. How many sports, how many athletes, how much money do we need? And he developed a formula, a per-athlete cost of a world-class programme. He used his experience, but also what we knew successful sports were doing with the money we gave them. And this was in order to stop every sport knocking on the door saying, we're different, we need more money, we're athletics, we need more money than judo. We wanted to stop this discussion because it was distraction. We weren't being able to focus on the job in hand. And so this per-athlete cost, a formulaic approach to investment, was really critical over this time. And we prepared that to be able to invest post-Athens in the Beijing opportunity. And then in July 2005, an amazing thing happened. 6th of July 2005, we won the bid to host the Games. Does anybody remember? Put up your hands if you remember where you were when that announcement was made. It was an amazing day. It transformed the face of British sport. I must divert. I'll tell you a story. I was in the middle of Trafalgar Square. And because I'd been acting CEO, I was asked to go and do an interview. One of the radio stations said, could you pretend you've already won the Games? So I said, okay, I'll come and do that. And so I had this interview and I pretended we'd won the Games. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. And I had a radio piece in my ear. I had a little transistor radio. I'd been listening to the lead up to the interview they were going to do with me. So I went back into the middle of Trafalgar Square, meet up with my colleagues, and I still had the radio piece in my ear. And you know there's a difference in timing sometimes and different equipment when information comes through. I heard the announcement that we'd won it a split second before anybody else in the middle of Trafalgar Square won it. And I jumped in the air, and I just felt everybody looking at me for that split second until everybody else went up in the air as well. And I was just in hysterics. But one thing it made me realise is you can never imagine how you're going to feel when that Games bid was won. I was overwhelmed. And there's no way, I never knew whether they used that interview. I hope they didn't, because it didn't do justice to what the emotions that everybody in the middle of the square was feeling that day. And then actually, July the 7th, we had a staff brief the next day, gathered in our office opposite Russell Square Tube Station, our offices were. July 7th, we thought, we've got staff brief. Some members of staff a bit slow coming in this morning. And of course the bombs had gone off, and Russell Square bombs we heard. We were evacuated, and had to set up a base in the basement of a hotel for it felt like a couple of months. It probably was only a month. But we, you know, that battle box that all the companies put aside for that emergency, we had to get it out, and we had to get up and running in the basement of a hotel at a moment's notice. So the highs of the sixth and the lows of the seventh was extraordinary, a time that we'll never forget. But it really unites you as a team when you've gone through those emotions like that. And we were determined to actually make the best of this opportunity that we had. So that London provided us with an opportunity to go on a 7-year journey to success. So not just the next games, as we've been looking at. We had the chance to look at Beijing and London, much further ahead. We had a formula, we had a way of identifying how much we needed. So we immediately put together a bid to government to say how much we needed for this journey all the way through to London 2012. If this government, now we've got the games, actually wants to see a successful team in 2012. And it was so that quantified the medal potential that we had, the number of sports, number of athletes, and the cost. And we put some options to government. We put options that said, if government, if you want to fund every sport, this is what it's going to cost, and this is the medal outcome. If you want to fund every sport, but not those that can afford to do it themselves, tennis, football, rugby, golf, I don't know whether it was in 2012, it wasn't. But then it'll cost you this much. Or if you just want to support those sports with medal potential, it costs you this much, and this is the outcome. And in each case, the medal outcome for the investment level was very clear to government, so it knew it had a very clear choice to make. And in the budget announcement of 2006, government opted to fund every Olympic and Paralympic sport except those sports that could fund themselves. The cost was an extra £300 million, and the medal potential we said we could deliver when we submitted that in November of 2005 was 65 Olympic medals. And 7 years later, we delivered 65 Olympic medals.